Brad, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. It is a pleasure to be here. It really is.
Well, Brad, I'm excited about this. I had a chance to watch the documentary myself. I want to start off by talking about Eric Gardner and his memory because I think for a lot of people it's so interesting to think about that when you say the name. I mean, there are so many things that automatically come to mind. What has it been like for you through this documentary to not only be able to share a bit of his story, but also to personalize it with his mother, Gwen Carr?
Well, in many ways, this film is a labor of love, but because we started this as an oral history project and we only had expected the film to go for a few months, but it ended up being 6 years. And I think it ended up being that long because we realized that we thought we'd be done many, many, many different times. And we thought we'd be able to just call it a day at many different moments or incarnations over these 6 years. But then we realized, no, the story wasn't done. The story just was not ready to be finished. And so we had to deal through breaking news, some of the major breaking news with Ms. Carr that made national news. We had to deal with the pandemic. We realized that we wanted to capture public and private moments and what happens to real people in these major news stories when the cameras go away. And what are the ripple effects of these issues to Black families and to families and the families not just in the immediate moment, but through time, over years after these incidents happened, what what that impact was like. And in many ways, the film is a procedural in two different ways to show what that impact is like and what that ripple effect is like, but also to show how one person can get out and make change in their communities as a result of that. Um, and so in many of these cases, people don't have control over what happens next. And so Miss Carr didn't either, but we wanted to show what her response to that was, and I think that's what we tried to do.
Brad, there's a real intimacy in this documentary, and so I want to ask you about the gift of trust that you were given to share this story because that's one thing I kept thinking about was wow, you're really able to. I mean, it's very obvious they let you in. What was it like for you to have that gift as as a filmmaker and director to be able to let people really come into their lives and to their experiences?
Oh, I believe that a person's story is the most valuable thing you can give to another person. And Miss Carr giving me that story for that length of time, she's not just my documentary subject, she's my friend. She's my friend. And I think we trust each other implicitly in many different ways. But that trust had to be gained. The trust had to be earned and shown over the years. And there are many private moments I will never, ever, ever show people or tell people that have happened over these private years, but sorry, these 6 years. But I think that with what we showed in the film, I hope that that labor love came through and that trust came through in different ways because I this film is steeped in oral history methodology. I'm an oral historian first, actually. And so for me, I believe that oral history is the foundation of all storytelling. And so approaching this film as an oral historian, even differently as a just sort of as a sorry, as a journalist or as a filmmaker, but approaching it as an oral historian, for me, there's a duty of care to my subject. And that is primary over anything. And so that's how I took these past 6 years, that her care was more critical to me than anything, even the film itself, if it had to be. And so I think understanding that was why she was able to have the patience with me that she did over these years, knowing that at the end of the day, that I would not disappoint her, hopefully, and that the final product is something that she could be proud of as representative of her life.
Brad, I wanted to that point in talking about both Ms. Carr as well as Eric Garner. I think there are so many people who, I mean, because this documentary, of course, is about what happened to him, but also her. But also, I think it's about us collectively, right? It's about dealing with loss, making an impact, making a difference, and knowing that what you do and what you stand for matters. I think a lot of times when we hear these stories, because they unfortunately come so often. Sometimes we forget the humanity behind them. Is that part of your hope with Her Fight His Name, that we don't forget the human that is Eric Garner instead of just looking at him as a name?
That's it. That's it. And you know, she said several times in the film, and we did not include that in many ways. Because I think that the moment was so private when she said it. It was on, but I can relay it, but I didn't want to show it. She said that her story does not start with Eric, and that in many ways I wanted to show that yes, this is a representation of who we are as a society, that there are that I wanted to show what happens when the cameras go away, but also want to show that there is a group of mothers around the world, around the country, excuse me, and around the world that come together to celebrate the deaths of their loved ones due to injustice. And they do this daily around the country, that there is this sisterhood of mothers in our country. It's almost like it's an epidemic to me. It's a crisis where they have to cut. They're only the only way they can try to heal from these incidents is with each other. And that it continues to happen. I was sitting at the airport just a few days ago, um, sitting at the gate, and somebody had the police had walked up to me at the gate. And I think it was a case of mistaken identity. I think thankfully the female police officer that was next to the male police officer that had initiated the conversation quickly reminded him that I was not the person they were looking for. And I think that happened in a few seconds.
Yeah.
But that situation could have turned into something. And then the individual that they did end up questioning a few feet away looked nothing like me. But I realized that, as Ms. Carr said in one of the previous interviews I'd had with her, this could happen anytime to anyone that fits a particular description of, so to speak. So I wanted to show that this was something that affects all of us, that my education did not matter, my income did not matter, my actions did not matter. If I happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, but fit a particular description, then my life could be at risk. And and I think that I wanted to show that this is something we have to deal with. We cannot get numb to these stories, that we have to continue to understand them. And I tried to do this in a way that spoke to people's hearts and their minds at the same time.
Brad, as you were talking, I was listening and thinking, I'm an optimistic person by nature, but I have met so many people, especially this year, who are just tired.
Mm,
They're tired of feeling invisible. They're tired of not feeling valued. And I'm
mm.
curious for you, as a storyteller through film, as a filmmaker, director, what was that like for you to hear Miss Carr's story, to think about Eric, and to know that he was not even the end of what we've been seeing when it comes
Yeah.
to encounters with police, and what keeps you hopeful as a storyteller?
Well, my life has always been gilded by hope. Ever since I've been a little kid, no matter what has happened either to me or to the people around me, at the end of the day, I always find that hope. And I think that's one of the things that me and Miss Carr saw in each other. She knew that I would give her story. You saw how it ended. She looked at the future and the generations that are coming. And I think that's what we have to glean from this. That, she said that in many ways, she even looked at her life as a wonderful blessing, and it is. It's a wonderful blessing. And I think that we have to look at each of our lives as a wonderful blessing by simple existence. But we, at the same time, we realize that we have a responsibility to make change in our own ways in our own communities. And that's what I want this film to do, to ask people and to let people know that they can make change in their own communities. We showed last night in Inglewood, California, and there's a young woman who was an opera singer who had come to the front row, and she just happened to like walk by and saw the film on the marquee. And so as she came in, she realized that she's like, oh my God, this film changed me by looking at making me understand that women are the bearer of these stories. So she realizes that now as an opera singer, she's going to take this out into her own craft. And who knows what inspiring moments that as an audience listening to her, what they're going to get from her inspiration because she watched this film. So in many ways, I want that ripple effect to go out in different ways, and to for people are different, so they can be inspired in different ways, and they can also act in different ways. And as a filmmaker, as an oral historian, as a person, I believe that this is part of my contribution in different ways. Why one of the reasons I'm put here on this earth to do that, and I hope to continue to do that for many years to come.
Definitely looking forward to seeing what's next. Again, everyone, we've been speaking with Brad Bailey today, the director behind Her Fight, His Name, the story of Gwen Carr and Eric Garner. Brad, really appreciate the time today. How can our viewers and listeners stay connected and keep up with updates on the film?
Sure, absolutely. You can go to our Instagram. It's at Her Fight, his name, at on Instagram.
Right. Brad, thank you so much. Congratulations again on a powerful piece of work and looking forward to our
Thank
next
you.
chat together.
Thank you so much. Me too. Me too. Have a great day.
Thanks to you as well. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.